And we are live. Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to She Built It Boss Lady Chronicles. I guess I should say welcome back because we've been gone for the month of June and the month of July. I've missed you guys. I'm glad to be back, and I am super excited about tonight's guest. I have a real rock star for you tonight. I can't wait to share her story with you. I can't wait for her to share her nuggets of knowledge with you guys. It's going to be amazing. Before we jump into the episode, there's a couple of things I want to highlight. First, August is Cultivate Your Confidence Month in the Boss Lady Dream Builders community. And the reason that we're doing this is I did a poll a couple weeks ago asking what personal development skill you guys most wanted to work on. And the overwhelming response was self confidence. So, what I've done is put together a program where I will give you a self confidence building skill every day in the Facebook group. And I just encourage you to engage with it. Some days there'll be journal prompts, some days there's actual activities to do. But I think it will be interesting to see how our self confidence begins to change over the next month. If you're listening and you're not a member of the Boss Lady Dream Builders community, join us on Facebook. We would love to have you. And then the other thing is registration is still open for a weekend for me, the Premier Wellness Experience for Professional Women, taking place in Grand Cayman, October 31st to November 3rd. Early bird registration is ending soon. Next week, August 15th is the end of early bird registration. So if you want to get in, you need to get in now. I'm happy to answer questions. You want to shoot me a DM, you want to jump on a Zoom, I'm happy to talk and would love to host you. All righty, so let's get to it. I have joining me tonight Dr. Crystal Nelson. So, Dr. Crystal is a board certified and licensed psychiatrist. She is a distinguished medical authority and entrepreneur in the realm of mental health. Dr. Nelson is the CEO and founder of two Georgia companies, Blueprint Psychiatry and Blueprint TMS, and Wellness Centers of America. In less than 5 years, she has expanded the services to over 4,000 clients and has received hundreds of five-star reviews and satisfied clients. She has devoted her career to providing exceptional services and revolutionizing behavioral health treatment with a patient-centered approach. Her approach uniquely combines genetics, cutting-edge technology, and nutritional coaching to produce exceptional outcomes in clients suffering from treatment-resistant depression and other mental illnesses. Her unique ability to translate complex psychological and psychiatric content into accessible language allows her clients to gain deeper insights. Dr. Nelson empowers her clients to reclaim their mental wellness. She has helped to transform countless lives and set a new standard in the field. Dr. Nelson has appeared nationally on headline news with CNN and Fox. She has been featured in articles for Working Mother. I got to put my glasses on, y'all. Voyage ATL, yes, Voyage ATL, Canvas Rebel, and Atlanta Magazine. Recognized as a leading expert, Dr. Nelson earned the title of Top Doc Atlanta 2023 in the field of psychiatry, an honor that recognizes the most exemplary healthcare professionals by unanimous vote from their colleagues. She has treated thousands of patients over her career, including celebrities and public figures. From this vast expertise, she has been a sought after speaker. She has captivated audience from coast to coast with topics on entrepreneurship, self care, pharmacogenetics, depression, anxiety, grief, PTSD, and work life balance. She recently published her own guidebook entitled A Blueprint to Better Mental Health. Dr. Nelson is a college graduate of the highly esteemed Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia. She earned her Doctor of Medicine degree from Morehouse School of Medicine and went on to complete her psychiatry residency at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia. She also has some additional training in geriatric psychiatry from the prestigious Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. Nelson also serves as an adjunct faculty professor at Morehouse School of Medicine, where she proudly collaborates to train the next generation of medical doctors. Dr. Nelson is an avid dancer and traveler. And most of all, however, Dr. Nelson enjoys spending time with her husband, Kenny, and their three children, Kenny Jr., Jordan, and Kenton. Welcome, Dr. Crystal. How are you?
Thank you. I was sitting here like, is Dr. Sharita going to read this
Is it ever going to
entire
end? But you
bio?
know what? I want the people to know who they're listening to.
I
I need them to
appreciate it.
understand.
No, I so appreciate it. But when you're listening to your own bio, it's like, is that really me? How
I know
old am
it
I?
always seems like it seems like it goes on forever, right? And, I think
Right.
it's one of those things where you're the psychiatrist among us, but I think it's one of those things where it's probably not nearly as long as it feels when you're listening to it. You know how
I'm
when things
sure.
make you uncomfortable, you
I
feel
am
a certain
sure.
way. So I suspect it's one of those kinds of things. But it was important to me that the viewers understand, who's talking to them, because I think you have such a remarkable story and I can't wait to share it with everybody. So I usually like to start by asking you to tell me a little bit about your journey. I know you're an entrepreneur, I know you're a physician, but you weren't born either. So how did you come to be a doctor, I guess, first? Well, you tell me which came first, whether you were an entrepreneur first and then a doctor, or a doctor and then an entrepreneur. But tell me a little bit about your journey.
I guess to start at the beginning, I would say I decided pretty early, I'd say 5, 6, that I wanted to be a doctor. Now, the
Hmm.
only doctor that I knew of was an OBGYN on the Cosby Show. That was the only doctor that kind of looked like me that I thought, well, I can
Right.
do that. So I went forward going to medical school that I was going to be an OBGYN. And I thought that all the way up really until the end of medical school. And I was doing my OB rotations, and my mentor said at the time, she says, you spent a lot of time after those mothers deliver with the women, making sure that they're connecting. She says, have you ever really thought about psychiatry? Now, I had already done my psychiatry rotation. I was like, no way. I don't want to do psychiatry. And she says, maybe you should think about it. And I actually did an acting internship in psychiatry. And then I fell in love with it. That was the fit. It was all of the pieces of medicine, and it was actually how I saw myself being a physician. But I just didn't know a psychiatrist was a physician. When you're coming through, you don't know that's a medical doctor until you go into the training process.
Right.
And so from that, went forward and became an entrepreneur later. I would say I probably always had that entrepreneurial flavor of
Hmm.
wanting to start my own thing and doing something on the side. I did stuff on the side even through residency, but being my own boss, that came in the last probably about 6, 7 years. And that came really from, and I think it kind of matches your story. I know, in
Hmm.
watching some of your previous shows, it kind of came from the same kind of thing of an implosion of the company I was working
Yeah.
for. And I, same as you, thought, I'm going to work for this company forever. It's going to be great. They're giving me everything I need. And then they
Yeah.
weren't. And it
Yeah.
didn't fit anymore. And I was a mom and a wife. And I thought, I don't want to come home and have nothing left to give to
Right.
my family and to my children. And so at that point, it was like, well, why not now? And my husband working with me, we went out and started our own thing.
Well, so
So,
tell me what gave you that agency, because I'm always curious about that, because there's so many people who maybe have that same feeling, like I want to have something left to give my family, but they don't give themselves permission to explore another way of doing things. What gave you that agency?
well, I'll say a couple things, and I won't, we have a little bit of time, but I won't go into all the details. Prior to that moment, I married really young, so I married at 21, and my first husband ended up passing away, And so I was a single mom. So I had endured that level of tragedy, hardship while becoming a doctor, while in the early stages of my career. So by the time I got to that point where I'm working for this company and then I'm not going to be able to stay with them, I already had this understanding that what on earth do I have to be fearful of anymore?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I knew, even though it was scary, not to say it's not scary to jump out there and go do it, but I thought, worst case scenario, hey, you can get a job. Like, you
Right.
can get a job
Exactly.
again.
Exactly.
If it fails, you are not in danger of living under a bridge. You can get a
Right.
job. So how about we just see if it works? I
Yeah.
knew what I was
I love
doing
that.
wasn't working, so why not try? So I think that that whole experience I had really kind of helped to douse. I think what keeps a lot of people trapped is just fear. What if it doesn't work? But really, the thought should be, what if it does?
Right.
What if it
Right.
does?
Because, and the thing that you bring up is that we have this idea that the decisions that we make are not reversible, or somehow
Mhm.
we can't go back, we can't undo it, or we can't choose a different way. And you're absolutely right. You choose this. If it doesn't work, you get a job, or you start another business, or whatever. But your stories doesn't end with that thing, even if that thing doesn't go as planned.
Absolutely. And I talk to, obviously talk to a lot of people, particularly young adults. This is something that, really hangs up young adults and their decision making. They think that all of their decisions are permanent. And I'm like, you need to sit down and talk to your parents. They're not telling you the truth, because the majority of people that are successful in whatever industry did not have a straight trajectory. They did not. They changed their mind several times. They didn't even know. I mean, I thought I was going to be an OBGYN. So I changed my mind on that. And it's totally okay, because it's all of that journey that kind of helps you figure out and craft really what your purpose is. I don't think that people really know until they start making those different decisions, backtracking a little bit, going forward. So totally agree. You just kind of go with it and see what works and discover those things about yourself so that you can get to that end result.
Right. And I think that each step leads you closer to where you're supposed to be. And there
Yeah.
aren't really any mistakes. All of it pours into you, all of it helps to form and shape who you are and who you are going to become. At least
Yeah.
that's my belief. Now, I want to
Yeah.
back up a little bit because you talked
Yeah.
about being a young widow, and you talked about medical school. So I know a little bit of your story, and I want to talk about that for a minute because I can't begin to imagine going to medical school with the things that you were dealing with. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, and then tell us what medical school was like for you?
We found out. So I found out that my husband was diagnosed with cancer right before I took the MCAT. Literally 3 days before I took the MCAT. So I'm set. I had taken some time off. I'm set. I'm going to medical school. I'm going to go take the MCAT 3 days before we find out he has a brain tumor and they're going to operate. I tell everybody this, and still to this day, it's been many, many years, but I don't remember taking the MCAT. Obviously, I did, but
Obviously,
I don't
you did
remember.
okay.
Right, and I did all right, but I don't remember that. I remember, kind of the jump going forward, and then the care he had to receive. But I kept moving forward, and there was a period there early in medical school where we had a period where they thought, and I say thought now looking back, that he was in remission. So we had a little brief hiatus where things were fairly normal, and then we move into second, third year, have a baby, and third year, and then the cancer came back. So from there, that was when all of the chaos and medical treatments. But what I will say, and shout out to any of my friends, my friends at Morehouse School of Medicine, my family, that's my family. They were so amazing. I truly attribute getting through medical school and going through that situation to being at the best medical school to me on the planet that supported me through that. And I again, because I had support, I didn't give myself an option not to finish. And so
Okay.
when I finished, then I chose residency where both of our families lived in Virginia,
Okay.
where we again had more support. So that was a big part of being able to get through it. Of course, nonetheless, it was difficult,
Oh
but
yeah.
the support that I had, and then same as I gave myself that same conversation, there's always a choice. You always have a choice. People think they're stuck. You're never stuck. You always have a choice. So I gave myself a choice. I could have a husband who was dealing with cancer and be a mom, or I could have a husband who was dealing with cancer and be a mom and a doctor. That was the choice,
Right. Right.
because I wasn't going to change him having cancer or being a mom or dealing with those difficulties if I chose not to become a doctor or chose not to complete what I had started. So I chose to say, well, I'm going to do that and just kept going.
I guess I wonder how you were able to maintain your focus because, having been through medical school, having been through residency, I know how grueling those things
Yeah.
are. You had to, I just admire your resilience so much because I can't even begin to imagine what that must have been like.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I would say that med school, if it may sound crazy, but I guess you can wrap your mind around. Sometimes med school or the studying, the classwork was a distraction.
Okay.
It was
Yeah,
something
I can
else
see that.
to think about. So again, I could sit there and be focused on this tragedy we're experiencing, or I could go over here and study for pharmacology. And so I
Right.
would, I would go over there and study. So it served as a distraction sometimes from what was going on, and it served as something else we had to talk about other than the cancer,
Yes.
other than the illness and the sickness. It still gave us an ability to dream together and talk about a future, because when you get that type of diagnosis, of course it's morbid and you think, well, gosh, my future is adjuncted here. um, and so it gave us an ability to keep dreaming and to keep
Yes.
going forward. So I just stayed in that space because the other had no appeal. So the other
Right.
was that
Sure.
this is going to cause a life that we don't want.
Right. Well, again,
Yeah.
I admire you, and I think you must have a really strong spirit to begin with because there are many people, I think who would say, okay, my husband's sick, I can't go to medical school, or now
Yeah.
my husband has passed away, I can't be a doctor. I have other things that I need to do. So
Yeah.
I admire your
Yeah.
resiliency for
Yeah,
sure.
it
And
definitely
so,
drove me at times. Yeah, it drove me at times because also him being sick, it drove me in saying, well, I'm gonna make if I'm a doctor, I will always make sure he has the best care, he has the best resources, and that was a lot of how he did end up with great doctors, great resources, good care throughout that process. So it was also a driving factor.
so how does having gone through that experience play into who you are today?
Yeah, I think it really has just so much to do with I can be comfortable with a lot more uncertainty, I think, than most people at this point, because after something like that happens, that is usually most people's biggest fear, that they
Mm,
will lose someone that close to them that they love, and then they will have to live life after that. That's usually most people's highest fear, a spouse or a child. And so after you live through that, you realize, again, what am I really here to be fearful of? Because I'm still breathing, I'm still alive. It hurts, but it is a feeling. And that's where I think I really can, I bring something different to psychiatry to help people understand all of this stuff is a feeling. And a feeling is not going to take you out. It
mm.
is just a
Yeah,
feeling.
sometimes
It
sometimes
changes.
it feels like that feeling's gonna take you out though.
Exactly, but that's all. But that's it. And they're fleeting. Some of them will
Yes,
last longer than we want them to, but they are fleeting. You are not going to feel the same every single second moment of your life, no matter how horrible that feeling is. it will change. So sometimes the only thing you have to have is a little patience to know that it will change. And so if I can live through a feeling that significant level of grief and sadness and all of that, then again, I have the capacity for the opposite of that too, because we live in a world of polarity. So the opposite is unspeakable joy, unspeakable
Mm.
happiness, all of that stuff that I have the capacity to experience now because I know the other side. So that's the part that can get me excited and I can share with my clients as well. That's the part that you are also now privy to if you visited some of that other difficult stuff.
Hmm. Okay. All right. Um, yeah, I think where my brain is going is different than where where I plan to go. So I guess we'll talk. So I've heard you speak about rewriting your story or kind of reframing things. So you talked about unspeakable joy being on the other side of that deep devastation, and I've heard you talk some about have going reframing your experiences where instead of being a victim you make yourself the hero. Can you talk
Yeah.
some about that?
Yeah, I think it kind of comes back to, what I was saying. You have a situation, whatever situation you have, you get to describe that situation in any way that you really choose. You can describe a situation to yourself and to other people that can leave you feeling helpless, hopeless, powerless, or you can describe the situation that makes you feel empowered. It will be the same situation, but you can tell yourself in a way that it makes you feel differently. So I'll use an example. I was talking to a client, and she unfortunately had a really tragic. She was date raped, and she was, telling me this horrendous story. And I said, okay, how are we going to tell this story to ourselves? Because I'm hearing your story, and it's as awful as that was, I'm also hearing that you survived it and you're able to tell me about it and you're able to look back on it and see things that you could share with other women that could warn them in situations like that. And she says, "Oh, I feel different about it."
Mm,
All the only thing changed was the words. The
right.
situation was the same, but the words can change in a way that it causes you to feel differently about it. So I think we always want to do that when it's something that you consider to be traumatic, tragic, because those things, as difficult as they are, shape us into people that usually most of us would say we're the better for the difficult things we've gone through. It helped us to learn something about ourselves, even if it's nothing more than your own power to get through them. So just reframing it.
Right. I think that's so important. I know, I mentioned a weekend for me at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we talk about during that weekend is owning your power to change your life and also, owning your power to change your mind. I
Oh, I like that.
talk about how important our thoughts are. And, they have creative power and they have the ability to take us from being really sad and feeling defeated to being victorious.
Yeah, I like that. And did y'all hear that Dr. Sharita said just the power to change your mind? There's so much in just that little bit. You have the power to change your mind. You can just change your mind. It can change everything. And you get to do that whenever you want. About anything, you can
Yeah.
change your mind. And again, something that seemed difficult can now feel like something that kickstarts me just because I decided to change my mind about how I was going to think about it.
Yeah, I wish I'd known that. There's so many years that I didn't know that. So now I always tell my daughter,
Me too.
when you're thinking, I said, it's like watching TV. If you want to change the channel, you just have a different thought. You don't have to think the thought that's in your head. You can change it
Right,
and think about something different. Replace
right.
it with something that's positive, rather than something that is negative or that's making you feel badly about yourself or about the situation.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I
And definitely I want to say to say to folks, I always try to preface this. It doesn't mean that, if you're having a difficult time, a difficult feelings that you're working through, it doesn't mean you need to get out of them right now. It's okay to kind of feel them, examine them, flip them over, figure out where they're coming from so that you can make the right change in your mind, or make a change that's going to lead you to better outcomes. So it's okay to kind of feel them for a little bit. It doesn't mean you have to walk around and, pretend to be happy. I want people to, of course, think we're not pretending. If something is not going great, we need to examine why I'm feeling this way for a bit, figure out if there's something that needs to be tweaked. Do I need to think about it differently, or do I need to put myself in a different situation? Because
Right.
Dr. Sharita and I didn't stay at those jobs.
We
We
did
still
not.
made it, we made a change, and we left. And it didn't feel great at first. It takes time
No,
to reframe, and time to get to that place. So this not something that is 0 to 100.
no, I agree 300%.
Yeah.
So I want to shift gears just a little bit because we're getting shorter on time. And I told Dr. Crystal before we came on that there was so much in her story that I was not sure how we could possibly get through all of it. And I see that I was correct. But I do want to talk about your practice because you take a very unique approach to psychiatry. I know when I went to med school and I went through my psychiatry rotation, really it was mostly about medications.
Right.
That seemed to be like the mainstay. There was, a little bit of talk about maybe cognitive behavioral therapy, but just a little. There was a little bit of talk about electric shock therapy and things like that. But the mainstay was medication. And I love this kind of what I call a holistic approach that you take
Yeah.
to treating your patients. Can you talk some about that?
Yeah. I mean, we really try to address people's mood, whether it be depression, anxiety, whatever mental illness, bipolar disorder, from every aspect. Because really, only about 50% of how you feel has to do with genes. Meds are only going to work on really that aspect. And so, there's another 50% that's influenceable by the things that you're eating. If you're moving your body or not. It's amazing to me always that people really have a disconnect with the fact that what I'm eating or not eating might be affecting how I feel. We don't think
Mhm.
about, we easily think about that, about high blood pressure and, heart disease, things like that. But, if I don't eat anything that makes the chemicals in my body that help me to feel good, I'm probably not going to feel that great if I also got some genes that add to that from my parents. So we talk about, from what they're eating, starting from making those chemicals to the meds that may help them hang on to the chemicals, to the movement of the chemicals. That's where we do some things with depression, where we use magnets for
Mm.
the treatment, to therapy where you're thinking thoughts, which also has to do with the movement of those chemicals in the brain, all the way to some of our patients do ketamine. All the different aspects that we can look at that influence how someone feels. And by the time some of them reach me, they have been depressed for a pretty long time. And I will be pretty straight with them. I'm a pretty straight person. I'll say, okay, at this point, you're fighting for your wellness. So that means we're attacking this from every angle. You are going to eat better. You're going to exercise. You are going to make sure your spiritual aspects of your life are in the proper order. You're going to take the medication if that's needed. You're going to talk to somebody. It's all of the pieces. So it's not one thing. We've gotten too much into it being just one thing. Give me the pill and make me better. If that worked, we'd all be fine. It doesn't work.
So talk to me about this diet. You said a diet that will make you feel better. What's the diet and why does it work?
So it's not one. I wouldn't say it's one specific diet, but one of the big things, especially now, a lot of these neurotransmitters that make us feel good, serotonin, dopamine, all these things. These things come from us eating certain things that have B vitamins. We need omega 3s. We need zinc. We need those things in our foods. And when you think about now, I used to joke, but now it's the truth. Think about an 18 to 24-year-old. My daughter goes to college tomorrow. They can go pretty much their entire teenage, young adulthood and never eat anything even green.
Oh wow.
You know what I
I know
mean?
it's possible, but it's
Right.
scary.
So then where would the B vitamins be coming from to make serotonin, dopamine, all of these things to help us to feel good? Where are they coming from? So then if you have that, you're not getting the food in, and then you may have some defect in your genes where you're not converting from your food, you're not even getting it. And then I just give you a pill that says hang on to what you make. Well, you're not even making it.
Yeah.
So we got to start from the beginning to make sure that we're talking to people about the whole story. And when you talk to people about the whole story, the medications become less and less of what is the necessary piece to keep them well.
Do you find that patients like that?
Yeah, they do. I mean, we get a lot of people that that's what they're hoping for. We kind of advertise that we're more than just medicine. Of course, we have, tons of people that do take medication, but rarely is medication going to be the only thing we're going to talk about. I mean, it is going to be a commitment of some other things as well.
Yeah, and I think what I like about it is that it's empowering
Yeah,
because I think sometimes when you're dealing with mental illness, you feel like things are completely out of your hands, out of control. And when you
right.
know, okay, I can eat certain things and I can exercise and, I can, work on my thoughts and, it gives you some kind of power over
Yeah,
what you're feeling.
yeah. Yeah, there's an action to it. There's an action step. Fastest way to change your feeling is put some action steps in place. And so if someone feels that they have some power to take an action step to move towards it, because all we need for happiness is progress. So I just need to be moving towards my end goal. It's not really the end goal. Your end goal gives you happiness for about 30 seconds. It's the journey.
So why does the journey give us happiness?
Because we're built for that. We're built to move. We're built to move towards things. Even physically, our physical body is built to move. We're not built to be static, stationary. So if I have a goal that I'm moving towards, even if I make 1% progress every day, that's a better way to get to happiness. We've gotten into a society that tells us the end journey is where your happiness is, just the end. And so we have
Right.
images of the end, and then people get depressed that I'm not there.
Right.
If you get there, you need to figure out where else you're going right after that.
Right, right, right. I always tell the ladies at the retreats that you're supposed to be constantly evolving, that you
Right.
weren't born to stay the same. And so I love
Exactly.
this whole concept of that, and that we're always working towards a goal, and that's what gives us the happiness and the life satisfaction. And that being
Right.
the case, I wonder why it is that so many people don't have goals, don't set goals. You think it's a matter of not knowing that this is the case or not really having experienced it? What do you, or that it's just not a popular thing in society? What do you think about that?
I think for a lot of people that I would say that I've talked to, most people won't set a goal because a fear, a fear that
Mm,
they can't accomplish it.
okay.
And because most of the time people feel like in order to set a goal, I have to know how to get there. And that I always say that's not my business. The
Yeah.
how I accomplish the goal is really not my business. It's my business to set the goal and to determine what I want. The supernatural helps me with the
Yeah.
how. There's nothing, I couldn't have told you how I would be talking to you as a
Yeah.
psychiatrist. There would have been no way for me to tell you how that was going to happen. I just said I'm going to be a doctor
Yes.
and I'm going to
So
take the next immediate step.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, I agree. So you've written two books.
Yes.
Um, tell us about the blueprint first, I guess, and then we'll talk about the second book.
Yeah. So the Blueprint book I created, it was really to help my clients that were coming in the office. We have clients that come into the office for TMS or transcranial magnetic stimulation. They are there Monday through Friday for 6 weeks, and so clients would come in for the treatment. They're committing to it, and a lot of them would say to me, "Well, Dr. Nelson, what do I do every day though?" Like
Mm,
again, wanting that action step. What can I do every day? So I sat down and really it was on the fly. I was like, okay, well, let me just sit down and create something for them. And when I kind of sat down and went through it, I realized, wow, they're with us 40 days and 40 nights. So
mm,
let me start with this 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness type of
mhm.
concept. and
Yeah.
write something for them to do in the morning and in the night. And then I kind of let it go. Truth be told, I wrote it, didn't do much with it, shared it with the clients. I had a client who came in who had it bound at Staples. She was actually the first person to bind it. And
Uh-huh.
I said, okay, pandemic happens. And then later on, I said, okay, well, let's turn this into something that I can publish. So then got with a publisher and bound it and created a workbook that people could do 40 days and 40 nights of things they do in the morning and they do in the evening. And they're just little small things that you can do. And the goal is to go through the whole workbook and then find the handful that work for you and let those be your coping skills, because it's not a one size fits all. And so you're
Right.
kind of crafting your blueprint of what works for you to manage your stressors, your anxiety.
Okay. All right. I like that because you're able to personalize it and tailor it to your needs
Right,
and your individual um, way of thinking. So
right.
people, yeah, that's actually how I came to know you first. I actually saw something about the Blueprint book probably a couple of years or so ago, and I thought,
Yeah,
well, this is really neat.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
love the concept, and again, it gives. I'm all about giving people the ability to do things on their own. Like I said, empowerment, so that you feel in control of your life. So
yeah,
now this
yeah.
this next book you wrote along with some other authors and Lisa Nichols. How did this
Yeah.
book come to be? How did this book come into being, and what's your chapter about?
So that came into being. I signed up. My husband had sent me a quick little, the Facebook email blast. Lisa Nichols was doing a little 3-day free online thing on speaking, and I had started speaking more. So he says, "Oh, sign up for that." So I did. Went through the 3-day free workshop on speaking, and at the end, she had an announcement that she was going to do a book that was similar to the Chicken Soup for the Soul, where she
Hmm.
started her career. She wanted to create her own series like that. And so there was an opportunity to submit a piece of your story, and then they selected from the people who submitted. And so I submitted and then got notice that I had been selected. And so in all, there are, I want to say 30 of us total that were selected out of all of the people that put in for this. And then we went through the process and wrote our stories. And I wrote my story about what I shared in the beginning, going through that process of finding out about my spouse who had cancer and getting through med school and being a mom in that those early stages. And so I titled the chapter "Borrowing Hope," because that's
Hmm.
what I felt like I would do. I would just kind of borrow the hope that this was going to change, that 4-letter word. Well,
Yeah.
let me just lean in on that this is going to get better. And so hopefully it inspires people to know that things change. And so, and if you can't hope for yourself, I tell patients this: borrow mine. I know it's going to get better for you. So if you don't believe that right now, just borrow that from me for a little bit.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. And then I love too that now you've come out completely on the other side of that. You didn't specifically say, but you have a new marriage. You have more
Yeah.
children,
Yes.
you know.
More
Yeah.
children.
So
Yeah.
this is so this is wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
It's like I said, a great story of overcoming. Because
Yeah.
you could have easily framed that situation in a completely different light, and instead you have taken it, it put it in its proper perspective, and are now helping other people with their mental health.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, again, I could make a decision to say that's going to be the end of the story, and I decide that's not going to be the end of the story. That's going to be part of the story. So I'm still writing it. I like to tell myself I'm still pretty young, so I got a lot of chapters left, to write to see how this is going to go. And I hope to be, little old lady talking to my grandchildren and say, back then I did that, and
Right.
they will say, but you did all these other things too. That's the story I want to tell.
Yes, keep going, right? Just keep going.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're just about out of time. If there is one single best thing that you can recommend to a woman who's maybe feeling a little lost right now, and she doesn't have a goal. She doesn't know where she's going, who she is. But she knows that there's something more for her. What's the single best thing you could recommend that she do?
That's a good question. So one, I would say, if someone were telling me that, saying that to me in my office, I would say, just get quiet and still. You have your answer. You really do. Get quiet long enough with yourself to hear and tap back into what it is that you are. Because we
Yeah,
all came here knowing. You came here as a child, you knew. You may have forgotten over time because life could beat us up sometimes. But if you get quiet with yourself, you'll be reminded of what you really want, who you really are, all of that. So just be patient. I would tell those ladies, be patient. Get quiet and be patient. And
yeah,
prioritize that time to be quiet and be with yourself and your maker so that you can figure that out. If you have to go out and get resources, people that hold you accountable to do that, do that. But the answer is, you have the answers. I
yeah.
don't tell women anything that they don't truly already know about themselves. I just facilitate them having permission to stop and take time to think about it.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
It reminds me of something that I always say, which is that personal development is really self-discovery. That it's really
absolutely.
just you connecting with what is already inside of you.
Absolutely, because you and I, we don't have any more of a special connection to the creator than any other woman we would talk to. We all have that connection. And so it's just a matter if I'm going to quiet myself long enough to tap into that or not.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
about making it a priority for you
absolutely.
and
Right.
deciding that you want to take control. I mean, that's how I look at it. Deciding that
Yeah.
you're going to have a big life, that you want to have a big
Right.
life that
Yeah.
is limitless.
Yes, yes. Oh, I love those words. Have a big life and limitless. I mean, I'm big on words, obviously. But those words make you feel good. I want to have a big life and I want it to be limitless, and it can be. It truly can be.
Yeah, I think that's the key. I think that's one of the things is trying to convince you that it's possible.
Right.
Because I think that's another big thing is that we just don't we see other people doing it, right? Like we look at you, we see you on these big stages, and I saw the pictures from the book release, and we
Yeah.
see those things. It's like, okay, that's great. Dr. Crystal has it all going on, but that could never happen for me. That's the story that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
But
No.
anything that anybody else has is also available to you.
Yeah, yeah, always. And that's a mindset. And I will say, and I don't I maybe I just attribute that to genetics and family. I always had that mindset. If I saw somebody else doing it and I didn't think to, oh man, they can do that, but I can't. I used to think, well, they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah. Why
Why
not?
why can't I? I
Yes.
mean, nothing different as far as I know that they have over what I have. It's just a matter of if I'm going to try that, if I'm going to attempt that. And so any woman that would be watching this, there is literally nothing that I have that you do not, other than I put the fear aside and just jump on in. And please know that it's still scary when you jump in. I just
Yeah.
move through
Yeah.
it.
The
You
fear
just
doesn't
move
go away,
through it.
right?
No, it doesn't go away at all. Standing on a stage is scary every time.
Yeah.
Every time.
I,
So,
I
but
can
you do
relate
it
to that.
anyway.
Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much, Dr. Crystal, for joining us tonight. Thank you for sharing your amazing story of resilience and sharing all of your knowledge. I'm deeply appreciative of you and of the work that you're sharing with the world.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
So now, if people are interested in following you, interested in getting your books, well, how can they do that? Tell us where to find you.
Yeah, so they can go to my website. It's blueprintpsychiatry.com. And so you can request, the books are there. You can request me, a consult with me or a speaker. Any of that is on the website. And then you can follow me on Instagram at Dr. Crystal Nelson, at Dr. Crystal Nelson.
Wonderful. Well, you heard it, guys. Get the books. Get the books. I'm getting them when I get off this call. I'm going to get them tonight because I am excited to read them. And Dr. Chris, I'm excited to follow your journey. You heard it, guys. You can be, do, become, have anything that you want, anything that you see anybody else has, you can do it too. You are limitless. So that's it for tonight. We will see you back here next week. Don't forget, cultivate your confidence this month in the Boss Lady Dream Builders Facebook group, and registration open for a weekend for me. If you are watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you've heard something of value in this episode, please share it, because we want to spread the word. We don't want to keep good things to ourselves. So that's it, guys. Have a great night, and I will see you next week. Take care.
Bye bye. Thank you.